I'll restart. This is a call to order for the special meeting of the Bridgeport Board of Education, held on Wednesday, March 15, 2023, 6:30 p.m. via Teams. Mr. Secretary, well, I don't think I have to do Mr. Secretary. We're going to open it up for public comment. I didn't receive any notification of anyone sharing anything. I see Ms. Perrin saying no. Okay, so we'll go right ahead into the agenda. The first item is discussion and possible action on entering into a contract with McPherson Jacobson according to the parameters discussed in the search committee.
I believe I should call attendance, make sure we have a quorum.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Chair. I'll backtrack.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that, but it's important. So, Ms. Brown?
Here.
Christine Baptiste Perez? Michael Macaron? Sybil Allen? Keisha Casimir?
Here.
Joseph Sokolovic?
Present.
Albert Benahan?
Present.
Joseph Lombard, present. Did I miss anybody?
Okay. So I guess I'll start back again. Discussion and possible action on entering into a contract with McPherson Jacobson according to the parameters discussed in our search committee. Board members, you've had an opportunity in committee to review the changes requested from McPherson and Jacobson on our behalf. And I will leave it up. I'll open up the floor for any further discussion on this item.
I don't think we need discussion, but if we do, it probably should be done in executive session.
Correct.
But I don't think does anybody feel a big need to discuss anything? Because we've seen everything and I'm ready to move forward. If everybody else is ready to move forward, we could just have a vote to approve the contracts as presented. But
So Mr. Sokolovic, are you making that motion?
yes, I make a motion to approve the contract as discussed with McPherson. I'm sorry, I forgot the name from McPherson. Jacobson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lombard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Motion carries. The next item is discussion and possible action on entering discussion and possible action on timeline and perimeters of superintendent search in consultation with McPherson and Jacobson. So,
yeah, Madam Chair, a point of information or concern, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to anybody, but as we are searching for a new superintendent, and I believe the current superintendent may throw her hat into the ring, I think maybe she should absent herself from this meeting so we could have the discussion without her present. No disrespect, Ms. Perrin.
I just to speak on that, I don't think it's necessary since this is a public meeting. You know, it's viewed for the public anyway.
Right. Well, that being said, you're not intending on weighing in on any issues or anything that we're discussing this evening, Ms. Perrin?
No, I'm not weighing in on anything. I'm here in my capacity currently as interim superintendent.
let the record reflect that. All right. So at this moment, board members, you have in your packets and you received in your emails the documents concerning this particular agenda item. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Jacobson and McPherson team to go through any guidelines and outlines. There is a document that I did submit to Miss Arlene. We can put that document online, and I believe on the screen that document has the timeline for anyone who's viewing this to understand what that timeline is going to look like. Unless the McPherson team and Jacobson would like to do that, you have the right to do that. So just want to say that it's in your hands.
Thank you. Yeah, we have the ability to share our screen, so I can put those documents up so the public can see that. Okay. So are we ready to begin our presentation now at this time? Very good.
Yes,
so
you are.
Thank you so much for, I know that we have moved this along fairly quickly, and thank you so much. I'm so glad we were able to make the adjustments to the contract, and we appreciate the opportunity to work with you. I know I had the opportunity to meet some of you 3 or 4 years ago, and so we have a somewhat of a new team, but it's myself and Mr. Copeland. We'll introduce ourselves, and Dr. Shelley Holt, who's unable to be with us tonight, but she will certainly be an integral part of the search as well. But as a refresher, my name is Dr. Ralph Ferry. I'm a retired superintendent from New Jersey and New York. My last district in New York was the Sewanee Central High School District, which is on Long Island, just adjacent to the Queens. And I had 5 high schools. It was the largest central high school district in New York. Tremendous district, a lot of diversity. I'm very proud of the work we did there. Currently now I am working with McPherson. I've been with them for somewhat over 5 years, conducted searches throughout the Northeast and in the South, all the way from Connecticut through New York, and we're doing a lot of work in Virginia, and now we're actually doing work in Maryland, West Virginia, and we have 2 searches in Florida. I am currently also the executive director of the Eastern region for the firm, as we've divided the firm into 3 areas throughout the country. So, Mr. Copeland.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Like Dr. Ferry, I'm a recent retired superintendent. My last superintendency was in the Lower Merion School District in Pennsylvania. I was there for about 6 years. Prior to that, in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, the Neshaminy School District, and prior to that, I spent about 11 years as superintendent in the Piscataway School District in New Jersey. I have, for the last 6 or 7 years, been a part of the American Association for School Administrators, Howard University Urban Superintendents Academy, where we have actively recruited and worked with aspiring superintendents who want to be part of urban school districts. I'm also currently a mentor in the National Superintendent Certification Program, where I am working with superintendents in Alabama, Missouri, Washington State, Arkansas, New Jersey, and I'm forgetting one somewhere. And I also do some active coaching of superintendents who are currently in the field. And I am I grew up in the Mamaroneck, New York area, and so have had some familiarity with that part of the country. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And just as a little background, Robert and I had the good fortune of working together in New Jersey, as our districts were very close, and we both served in leadership roles in Middlesex County. And I can speak for myself. I'm sure Robert may agree with this, but we were part of the group of what we thought were outstanding superintendents in New Jersey that had to leave the state because Governor Christie capped all of our salaries and made us lower paid than anyone else in our districts. So I went on to New York, and I can't speak for Robert, but I know he went on and certainly did a great work in districts in Pennsylvania, Lower Merion being one of those districts. It's a phenomenal school district. So
thank you. Thanks, Ralph.
So what we're going to do if you can introduce yourselves, that would be helpful to us, and then we'll go through the agenda and move forward.
Sure. So my name is Joseph Lombard. I'm the secretary of the board. I was on the board back when you were looking at this a few years ago as well. So, yep. Okay.
Good to see you again.
Hi, my name is Albert Benningham. I'm a board member here in Brickell School, and I'm the chair of the Student and Family, co-chair of Facility and Health. So thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you.
Ms. Cashmere, would you like to go?
I'm sorry, Akeisha Casimir, board member. Thank you.
Brown.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Sure. Joe Sokolovic, dinosaur, longest serving board member, 6 years on the board. I've been through the rodeo a couple of times already.
Great.
And then I guess I'll go Bobby Brown, board chair of Bridgeport Board of Education. And this is my first time going through this process. So thank you.
Okay, so our agenda, I'll put our agenda up. And I'll share my screen. Hopefully. Well, I don't see it coming up, so. All right, we're gonna go with what you have. You have it. I know you have the agenda, but let me go through our agenda with you. Our goal tonight is to, first of all, determine a point of contact for the search. Now, boards ask us, who do we normally use as a point of contact? And that point of contact for the district, in some districts, it's the board president. In some districts, it's the executive superintendent, the executive secretary to the superintendent. In some districts, it would be the clerk to the board. And basically, that person is our point of contact. Oh, there it goes. Okay. That person is our point of contact. This is a timeline that's up, so we'll hold off on that. But that person is our point of contact. And what we do is we funnel everything through them, and that they also help us set up the Zoom meetings, because the Zoom stakeholder meetings are critical, and we'll go through that as well this evening. So I don't know if you've had conversation in terms of who would be the point of contact, but that person would also guide us to the technology person, the person who's responsible for technology, so that we can get the online survey on your website, have a superintendent search tab on your website, all the documents that we develop and share with you so that they're put on your website. That person will also help us with your communications department in terms of making sure everyone in Bridgeport knows when the online survey is live. And that person would also guide us to the folks in the district that would provide us the information we need for development of our brochure that we will circulate throughout the country and use in our advertisement process. So have you given thought to that in terms of who your point of contact will be?
I don't believe we have. I guess my bigger question is, you're saying this person would represent the entire, will either come from the board or just from the staff within the district. Am I correct?
Yes, it's either been, for instance, the board president,
Okay.
or board president, board secretary. Sometimes it's been two people. And in some, like for instance, in Alexandria City, which I'm just completing the search there, they choose to have the clerk to the board be the point of contact. In some districts, we're working in a district, I'm not involved too much with the search, but in Jefferson County, West Virginia, their point of contact is the executive secretary to the superintendent. Now, it's important to emphasize as well, when the information is sent to the point of contact, we require that all the information be disseminated to every board member, because we want all the board members to get all of the information all of the time. So you know your district best in terms of whether it needs to be, the point of contact needs to be the board chair, or if it should be one of you on the board, or if it should be someone from staff.
What I will say is, I will open up the floor for board members to share their thoughts on who they think that should be. And I'll just preference. Okay, Mr. Sokolovic, I see your hand up first. Go ahead.
Yeah, before I make a suggestion, I got a question.
Sure.
With the information being disseminated to all board members and everybody, how do we partition the information from staff that may be wanting to apply for the position themselves?
Okay, so that's a great question. the information that we would send through the point of contact ends at the point of time that we have our recommended list of candidates to you. Once we have that short list of candidates that we're recommending to you, we will send confidential packets home that will be sealed to each, and it'll have each board member's name on it. And then we expect that that information get delivered to you in terms of who the applicants were for the position and who we're recommending as the short list of candidates for you to consider. Okay, so the information that we're sending through the point of contact, otherwise to that material, is information that will go up on your district website. So it will be open to anyone who wants to view it in terms of the transparency of the process.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification.
Did you want to share a suggestion of your thoughts on what that should
Yeah,
be?
I'm thinking if the board chair don't want to take it on, or any of the board members, I think maybe the person who deals with our contracts and RFPs might be a great point person for that, maybe Mr. Pires, if he would be willing.
I did invite Mr. Pires tonight. He wasn't able to attend, so we can keep that in mind. Mr. Benahan, who did you have in mind?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Knowing we have a chair and a vice chair and a secretary, and we got the other board members, so have a fair and, you know, be sure we can have I would like you as the chair of the board be part, and I would like to have Mr. Joe Sutherland be part of the two people contact. So I can say, you know, you be the chair, and then Mr. Joe Sutherland be a member, so we can, you know, divide. That's my opinion. That's the two people I would love to have it. Thank you.
Mr. Lombard?
Yes. So it sounds like a lot of this information, if I'm correct, is information that needs to be handled in a technical fashion, providing you with information, posting information. So whoever the contact person is, or maybe even are, it needs to be someone who can do that work, you know, who can provide you with that information or post that information. So if it did, I mean, since all the information is going to go to all the board members anyway, if it was more convenient to work with someone on staff or in conjunction with, let's say, the chair of the board and someone on staff, that might make the most sense. that may work the best, because it sounds like it's a responsibility that no one on the board can execute. It's not things that the board member can do, is what it sounds like to me. Is that about right?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think having perhaps the board chair and a member of your district staff work collaboratively, because when we start establishing dates and meeting times for the stakeholders and the posting on the website and so on, you're absolutely correct. We're going to need someone who has access to email databases, who has access to the technology, and so on and so forth. So if we had perhaps your board chair and one key person in the district that you can share with us, and
Yeah.
you don't have to tell me who that person is this evening, but
Right.
if you can get that information to me as soon as possible, and I can share it with, certainly we'll share that with Mr. Copeland, because he's going to be an integral part of this search. That's critical, and I think that's the most sensible way to do it.
Yeah, and I think this is something where, you know, calling on, you know, interim superintendent Perrin to know her staff, who would be a good staff person for that. You know, that might be something she could work in conjunction with Bobby Brown to figure out the right person to do that. Because you mentioned some possibilities, and she would know the workload of her staff well, you know, to know what that would be. So.
Exactly, because as per your point, if it's just the board chair is going to then send that information down to the district, and somebody from the district's going to do it anyway. So that's why it's good to have the collaborative between two people.
All right. Miss Kashmir?
I agree with Mr. Lombard. the board chair along with a technology savvy person on the staff.
Okay. And is there any other board members? I can't, just in case I miss anyone before I add my 2 cents. All right, so I don't see anyone. So I do agree that it should be someone, it should be the board chair, but obviously the chair in conjunction with a staff member. I'm not sure exactly who would that be. So that will be the next question on who would that person be. We both have a secretary, we have IT who can handle all the documents being uploaded as well. We have our secretary as well within the district that can do that. And that's kind of like the way we do it with our agendas anyway. Any of our agenda postings. So that could be my 2 thoughts. That could be a way to do it. And do you want us to, like you say, we don't have to decide tonight, but do you want in the meantime us prepare a name, or Ms. Perrin to prepare a name, or?
I think it would be best for you to have a dialogue with your interim superintendent, who would then
Okay,
tell you who the best person would be to handle that role. And then
Okay.
you can send me an email with the contact information.
Got it. Thank
Okay.
you. Yep. Is everyone in
Okay.
agreement? Yep.
All
Okay.
good? All right, very
Okay.
good. The next piece, and I'll just go through, the next piece we're gonna work on is developing some criteria. And then we're gonna go through the tentative calendar for the search. We're gonna review the stakeholder input process, and when these meetings should occur, and what languages the online survey should be placed in, and the advertising venues, and so on and so forth. I would like to mention one thing. I know you had mentioned this on the front end of your conversation. Your interim superintendent is certainly, from our perspective, welcome to apply for the position, and your interim superintendent will be treated exactly the same as any other applicant process. So we just want to make sure that that's clear, and because very often we do have either interims or internal candidates apply for positions, and we want to be very fair and transparent about that as well. So that was a good point brought up earlier, but we want to emphasize how we address that. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Copeland, who's going to work with you on the criteria. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be the note taker, and hopefully we can agree upon 4 or 5. I did send you a draft position description, and please understand that was just a draft to get the process started. I also, if I could just go over a couple of pieces of that very quickly and then turn it over to Mr. Copeland. But
if while you're doing that, I just want to reflect, we have another board member that have joined us. Our Ms. Baptiste Perez has
very
joined
good.
us. What I think may be best, if we could do a small recap, just in case anything was missed or audio wasn't captured. So we covered so far introductions, and then we also identified who would be the representation from the staff and the board. The board will have an opportunity to, they share their thoughts that it should be the board chair as along with a staff member. I'll work with Ms. Perrin to identify who that is, and then I will submit that name to McPherson and Jacobson. And then other than that, everyone did introductions, and I believe I've captured the main thing that we went over. I can turn it back over to the team unless board members, you think I missed anything.
Just the neutrality as far as the interim superintendent. There was a point made that should be considered just if there's an application, should be considered equally with everybody else. And when we get to the point where we get applications from candidates, they'll be partitioned off, and all confidential information will remain compartmentalized.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Yes, absolutely. That's perfect.
Thank
So
you.
let us move on to the criteria piece and the position description. So the position description that I did send to you, and hopefully you had the opportunity to look at it, basically just has several sections. And the first section just says that you are looking for your new superintendent. We put some language in there that we use in terms of transformational leadership and addressing issues and concerns as residents throughout the community, the school community bring forward. And then where Bridgeport is located, Eastern region of Connecticut, approximately 62 miles north of New York City on the Long Island Sound. I looked that up, made sure I had that correct in terms of the distance. The next part I took right from the website is that, and this might be some minor tweaks. The city's public school system has 30 elementary schools, 3 comprehensive high schools, 2 alternative programs, and an interdistrict vocational aquaculture school. That might be something that you might want to add to or make some minor tweaks to. System has about 23,000 students, and that, that's just a roundabout. Obviously that enrollment changes probably day to day, but certainly when it's taken. Making Bridgeport Public Schools the second largest school system in Connecticut. School system employs professional staff of more than 1,700. Again, these are just roundabout numbers. The enrollment is 23,000, as again said. Location, Eastern Connecticut. The salary, we usually standardly put regionally competitive based upon experience and qualifications. Obviously, that's something that gets negotiated later on. And then under the qualifications section, and some of you might have some of this in your criteria, but we like to include it in the qualifications section so we can really get the criteria that you're looking for really broader and concise. No, that's not what I want to say, but really associated with what you want to see in this next superintendent, experiences, et cetera. But we talk about a superintendent or central office leadership position in a similarly sized district is preferred. Okay. Sometimes we will put in similarly sized diverse district is preferred. That's up to you in terms of if we need to add some of that language, we can do that. Doctorate and Connecticut superintendent certification or eligibility for it are required as a preference, as is a preference for living in Bridgeport. I don't know if that's important to you or not. That's something you have to let us know. The doctorate, we could put preferred instead of required, but obviously the certification is required, right? We know that. And then we go to the criteria. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr.
Yeah.
Copeland.
Thanks. So what I'd like to do is to hear from each of you about the specific criteria. What I'll do is then try and digest that into the statements that would follow under those qualifications. And so if you can tell me, we'll go around at least, twice or 3 times, unless something has been repeated, and hear from each of you. First, what's your number 1 qualification criteria that you want to see in the next superintendent? When we've gotten all these together, I'm going to try and distill them. I'll share them with Dr. Ferry, and then I'll share them with the board. And if you're ready, we can make that part of the advertisement. So with that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Sokolovic, I see your hand up first. You're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, first I got a question. Maybe you could help us hone in, because I'm sure this is going to be big on people's minds. As far as a residency clause, can you give us the pros and cons of inserting a residency clause?
From my experience, it's interesting because from state to state, there are certain requirements. So I don't believe it's a requirement in Connecticut that you have to live in the district. Okay. So if a board requires someone to live in the city, that might narrow the candidate pool down, because certainly if you have somebody who lives fairly close in another area of Connecticut and make the commute, you don't want to exclude them from the application pool. Of course, if it's someone coming from out of state, then it depends upon, the availability of them to identify property they can either purchase or rent or things of that nature. So it can be limiting. So you can say preferred if it's preferred, or you can leave it out completely.
Yeah, because we struggled with that. That's something we struggled with as a board, and of course, we want people in our community to ascend, and we want people to live here. But just wondering how much it would.
I think I think as a function of the reality of the pool of viable superintendents, you want to keep it as wide open as you possibly can. If you do want some assurances, you might consider a ratio, 15-mile ratio, 30-mile ratio, something, radius rather, something like that, which gets the point across but doesn't close it down completely.
Right. Yes.
I
Right. So with those clarifying comments, I would like to see whatever superintendent we got required to live within 10 miles of the city of Bridgeport at the very least.
Okay. You have 3 more. You have 2 more.
Oh, you want me to do all of them? I thought they would just.
I was going to let you go all, just in case
Yeah.
you repeated some. So if you could each
Right.
do just one,
Okay.
I want to hear your top thing.
Right.
Okay.
Well, my top thing would be to have a person with experience in a diverse city and with a strong background in equity work.
Okay.
Thank you.
And my final thing is, I would love to see somebody with no. I guess that would come something later. I forgot. Somebody that will keep their commitment if we do in fact have a residency clause or a radius clause in the contract. So somebody who's shown a tendency to keep their commitments.
Mhm.
Okay, that's it. That's 3.
Thank you. Mr. Benahan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to have somebody, superintendent, give it he or she, to have a voice for our students, the voice of our parents, and the voice of our staff. Somebody, not because it's superintendent of school, she will not be followed the protocol and policy. They're a person that understands why we hiring this person and why she's here for the district, for our community. Somebody care, somebody have love, somebody have chance. I know that person will be professional, but they have to add additional, like they care. I always say this in my meetings. They can have a big, huge resume, be that not everything, but if you don't have that in your heart, like you care about community, parents, staff, and students, I feel that this is not, you don't belong here. That's the way I feel.
If I used words like empathy, would that help to capture also?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. I know that Mr. Sokolovic did all 3. Mr. Albert Benahan did 1. So you want to just keep it in the spirit that we are. You want to list your other 2?
Okay.
Mr. Benahan?
So I didn't hear you very clearly.
You want to
Madam Chair.
list your other 2 since, Mr. Sokolovic did his?
The other 2 I can say, oh my God, there's so many. That's why I want to tell you which one's the good one. I can say a person, be sure, strategy, planning, leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Somebody who's well read in the field?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
And especially someone that we know she or he will be there for us, for community, parent, and students.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Miss Baptiste Perez?
Yeah, I'll wait. I was trying to turn on my camera too. 1 second. There you go. You can see me. Okay, so for my 3 must-haves for the next Bridgeport superintendent, the first thing I have is a visionary, someone that must see beyond the academically unacceptable schools with an eye at innovative solutions. And that innovative solution must include the success of every Bridgeport public school student, ensuring that each one will, I spent time answering this, each one will have access and the ability to graduate and pursue a post-secondary education and become a productive member of society. The second thing I have is for the next superintendent, it has to be a great collaborator. That individual must be willing to step up to the plate amongst a very turbulent and politicized environment, and especially in an urban district, to create a team of critical stakeholders that will ensure every student succeed. I just had like a little asterisk there. Collaboration with the school board, parents, organization, community members is key. The third thing I had down, the next superintendent for Bridgeport has to be a true agent of change. And that is to inspire the district and the staff and the faculty and the administration. As a sub bullet to it, I believe part of that needs to be actual experience in the classroom. As an educator, not a gym teacher, no offense to gym teachers that may become superintendents, but an actual educator in the background teaching in the classroom, I think is key, and is something that I've seen from personal experience, that if a superintendent does not have that, there's a lack of respect from various other stakeholders. So that agent of change needs to actually have some of the background to actually inspire the staff, faculty, and yeah, that one's really key.
Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Kashmir, what are your three strong points you want in a superintendent?
I agree with everything everyone else has said so far. My 3 are someone who is accessible, someone who has experience working with a diverse staff and school population, and someone who is a very good critical thinker.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lombard?
Thank you. I guess mine are kind of specific, kind of quantifiable. I'd like to see someone who comes with urban experience as a superintendent, who's experienced coming in and can pick up the reins and go. And if they don't have urban experience, then I would say at least 3 to 5 years of suburban experience as a superintendent. So that's something that I would like to see, someone who comes with a, I know Mr. Benahan said that you could have a stellar resume but not care. Of course, that's obviously necessary too. But I'd like to see someone who has some background, so they're not, starting out.
So they should have experience in urban education,
Well,
but not necessarily at the superintendent level.
Well, no, I'm saying even at the superintendent level, I'd like to see someone who knows this kind of work, and who does not, then was a superintendent somewhere else for at least 3 years. Someone who could pick up the ball and run with it. That's what I would like. You can't always get what you ask for, but so I would like to see someone who has had superintendent experience at the urban level. I mean, if there are no superintendents applying for the job, then you go for the next level, someone who is a high administrator. I'd also like to see if someone can show us that they've had direct success, their own hands in the pot with where there's strained budget environment. Someone who can show us that they've worked in a difficult budget environment and had success. I'm not saying they're going to take all the credit. I hope they would not take all the credit, but show us where they've been involved in working through something and maybe even bring something to the table for us. So I would like to see that. I don't currently have a third thing at the moment, but that's what I have for right now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And then I'll go. My first one is a diverse / urban experience and credible reputation within the district that they previously served in or have or will serve in. So that credibility is very important for me because that says a lot that you've been doing this for a while. My next one is the strong relationships with key stakeholders, community leaders, families. And my last one is kind of similar to Mr. Lombard's, the advocacy on budget. That's huge for Bridgeport, being able to have a face front and individual that can advocate strongly for financial increases for our budget, because that affects a lot of what we do. And I think those are my three.
Thank you. Thank you all. And as I had indicated earlier, I'm going to try and get these into shape so that it can be part of the advertisement. And you know what? Let me thank you for being board members. While it's a challenge to sometimes find school leaders, I got to tell you, there's a nationwide dearth of people who are willing to step up and be accountable and be members of the Board of Education. So, and I mean that sincerely. Thank you for the work you do.
But before we continue, online is receiving some type of echo. So if you are not speaking, just make sure to mute yourself so that there isn't any echo taking place. I'm not sure if other individuals may have their cameras and YouTube on, but just in case you are, if you mute yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like just to also thank you very much. These are, I think your criteria are absolutely on target. And I know that Mr. Copeland will be able to combine these into 5 outstanding criteria. And I would like to mention, though, that the live within 10 miles of the city of Bridgeport, we can include that in the qualifications paragraph. The 3 to 5 years as a superintendent in a urban / suburban school district, we can include that in the qualifications section. And the experiencing in classroom as an educator in teaching in the classroom, we can include that in the qualifications as well. So by taking those and including them in the qualifications, I believe that Mr. Copeland will be able to take those others that you gave us surrounding budget and collaboration and change agent, inspirational. He'll get all that into 5 excellent criteria. So then he'll share that with you, and then obviously you can send it out to all board members and then get it back to Mr. Copeland so we can get it to the home office and get this advertised. The quicker it's turned around, the sooner we can get it advertised.
Madam Chair is.
You're muted, Madam Chair, you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
There are a few hands up, so before we proceed, I just want to make sure we answer those hands. Ms. Baptiste Perez and then Mr. Lombard.
Yeah, I don't think we were sold on a radius outside of Bridgeport. I think if anything, we just put a high preference for residency in Bridgeport instead of setting a geographical term at this time. I think, and I know that's a contention of like split, but maybe in terms of the advertisement, it makes it clear like it's a high preference, and maybe that.
Maybe it would help if it would be helpful if the board is comfortable with it. Let me play with some language about a desire of visibility and accessibility within the district, and living in a way that will make that work. Some words to that effect. Does that help? Rather than 10 miles, or do you want to stick with the 10 miles?
I think what you said would probably be more meaningful. I guess would probably hit to the point more so than to have a hard number radius. That's just I don't want to hold up the actual advertising. I think there is a preference for an individual to live in Bridgeport, but is that the end all be all? I think that wouldn't be the end all be all, but I think that is a high consideration. But yeah.
And I would agree with that in terms of it should be a preference and a high consideration. But again, you don't want to close out if you make it required if someone lives 15 miles. Okay. I mean, I know I'm splitting hairs there, but and the key is what Mr. Copeland said is you want somebody who's going to be integral part of your school community, right? And that people are going to know is committed to Bridgeport and they're going to be involved and they're going to attend events and they're going to be at community activities. That's all really important, primarily from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. So,
Yes.
our next person is Mr. Lombard.
Yes, I had my hand up to comment on the same thing that Ms. Baptiste Perez just commented on, but I'll just expand upon it a little bit. I agree that there should not be a specified radius. And I also agree with everything everyone's saying about the needing to be accessible, available, preferable, a Bridgeport resident, that'd be wonderful. But we may have people who are excellent educators in Connecticut, maybe working, maybe even working in Bridgeport, who don't live in Bridgeport, you know, or who live in other cities like Waterbury or New Haven or Norwalk. It just may be. And so I like the idea of, you know, Mr. Copeland framing some type of language that we could look at to see if that satisfies our intention and still at the same time emphasizes our preference, you know. So that's basically what I wanted to comment on as well.
That's excellent. I can give you an anecdotal example. In one search I was involved in Pennsylvania, we had an outstanding candidate who lived a little bit further out, but this candidate had high school aged children, and to move them out of their high school to a new setting was just not the right timing for the candidate. So these are things you have to consider as well. So that excellent points.
Thank you. The next person is Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify something. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. And I know Mr. Lombard said, when I said no, I don't care what the resume said. Yes, I care about the resume. I just want to clarify this. Of course, I want somebody with background. They understand, they're professional, they know what they're doing. But if you have all that, it's fine. But if you, like I say, if you don't come in from your heart and you're ready to work for our district, like you almost know, we got almost 21,000 students, almost 3,500 staff in the district. So, you know, if you're not ready for that, so maybe this is not your place. But of course, I want somebody with a background. I just want to clarify that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I didn't mean to misrepresent what you said. I apologize.
No, but I just want to clarify for that. You know, I don't want the people understand, you know, something wrong. Thank you.
One of the comments that I make when I work with aspiring superintendents is that it tends to be binary. There are some people who want to be superintendent, and there's some people who want to do the work of superintendent. So just being the superintendent, if that's all you want to be, you're probably not going to be successful, and I can't help you. But if you want to do the work, we can figure out a way to get that done. Does that help you, sir?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, Mr. Sokolovic.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, further reflection here in Mr. Lombard and Ms. Baptiste Perez, and why definitely leaving a radius off and not mandating anything will make the net be wider than if we do place limitations on where people can live. I think that's, I mean, it's fine to state a preference, but to mandate something and to limit the pool would be, I think, against our interests.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you can continue.
Are we ready to go forward?
Yes, I believe everyone has listed their three.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, so next on the agenda is Mr. Copeland will talk about the stakeholder input process.
Yeah, I think well, what we're looking to do is to get information from your various stakeholders. Now, Dr. Ferry, have you talked with the board about numbers of sessions and groups of?
When we talked in the proposal, and we did determine that our stakeholder meetings will all be virtual, but we will work with the board to identify what stakeholder groups they want us to meet with. And I had recommended in the past, we meet with teachers, administrators, teacher leadership, administrative leadership. We definitely want to meet with a group of students,
Mhm.
community.
Do you have a parent council or?
Yeah, if you have a parent council, representatives from the city in terms of if it's whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or if it's various civic groups that you have. And then we could have, I know it's Zoom, but we could have one or two open community sessions as well. But we rarely work with the point of contact to send out invite letters to this particular individuals that we would like to have involved in the stakeholder process. So that's pretty much what we've gone through. There'll be three, we'll have our other consultant will be available to help us do that as well. So the question becomes, when can we do it? Obviously, we want to do that as soon as possible. And
those are usually about 45-minute sessions.
yes, those meetings are about 45 minutes. We record everything that everyone says. Then we turn it around, and simultaneous to the week that we do the stakeholder meetings is when we put the stakeholder survey up. Definitely in English and Spanish. If there's other languages you feel we need to include, we do that. We need to know what those languages are. Our home office will they will translate those into, and there's 4 questions. You know, there's tell us what's the great things about Bridgeport and the region and the area. Tell us what's great about the district, all the excellent programs and so on. And then they help us recruit. And 3 and 4, tell us about the challenges. What are going to be the challenges that the new superintendent, if he or she's going to be successful, has to address? And the 4th is, what are the qualities? What are the characteristics, the experiences you want to see in your next superintendent? So it's all qualitative. We will report all that back to you in a report. That those same questions are put up on the district website for the survey, and again in the languages that you recommend. We do like to have someone in the district take a look at our translations to make sure that they're accurate, because you know the home office uses Google Translate, but sometimes it doesn't come out exactly the way it should. So if you have someone in the district that can take a look at these languages, that's very helpful. And then after we get all that information, we collate it all, collect it all, provide an executive summary, and send it to you in a stakeholder report, review that with you, and then we ask you to put it on your website after you see it. The only thing we edit out, in terms of what folks tell us, is not that this will ever happen in Bridgeport, but we do edit out vulgarity, and we edit out if someone mentions particular individuals' names. But we don't check for spelling, we don't check for grammar or anything like that. We just report back what people tell us.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open it up for board members to express their thoughts on this. I'm not sure, Dr. Ruff, are you asking them to provide names now for that?
Just groups.
Just groups. You don't have to do that now. You don't
Okay,
have to do that now.
So
Just
board
give us
members-
some groups, that's all that you want, so that we make sure we don't address the critical groups that you want us to meet with.
Okay, so board members, you have that opportunity, and then also just your thoughts on the stakeholders, what you would like to see. All right, Mr. Sokolovic, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, as far as the stakeholder groups and everything and what's going to be in person and what's remote, I think most of our professionals who are used to Zoom or Teams and electronic meetings, definitely we could probably handle those online. But I would probably like to see more in person for like maybe our parent groups and other stakeholders who may not be as computer savvy as others. So those will probably be where we want to do in-person meetings. I don't know if everybody agrees with that or not.
I just mentioned one thing, if you recall, when we redid the proposal, we took out in-person meetings to keep the costs down.
Correct.
So I
But
want to make that
right.
note.
But I think,
but did we not leave the option open to add on and incur the costs and pay the expenses for that?
The option's there, but that's up to you.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
and also just to add to that before I go to Ms. Baptiste Perez, there is a possibility too. I think Mr. Ralph, we talked about this, where even if the board is in person and the team is online, that can also be an option as well, like what we do our hybrid model for our meetings when staff. So that could be something too. So the community can show up and ask the questions that they need, just like at a regular board meeting.
Oh, you mean having a board member present at the meeting and then doing it?
Yeah, so we just like how we're conducting this on
Yes.
Teams, we have our board meetings where we have staff that are online, but the community members can come up to the podium and ask questions of you guys on what they would like to see. So still they feel like they're a part of it versus being online. For those that struggle with that technical side, they won't have to worry about that. We would do our meeting hybrid in a sense. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying to picture it. So I'm understanding what you're saying. Let's say you have a community forum
Mm-hmm.
and your technology people set us up
Yes,
to conduct the community forum.
correct.
They are there and we're conducting the community forum like we're conducting it with you now.
Yes.
That could work very well, not a problem. The only
Yes.
thing I do want to caution you is we do recommend that board members not attend the stakeholder meetings.
Right. I guess I was more so on the community part of it.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I
So
think that's a fiscally responsible thing to do. That doesn't require the consultants to be on site, but it still allows people to be almost I don't want to say a television show, but it's like somebody, it's like the audience is there and somebody is monitoring it. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, I guess.
Let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say you had your high school auditorium set up, right? And you had a big screen and you had people invited to a community forum and they came up and to the microphone and answered our questions. And we were on that screen conducting that virtual meeting as a community forum for a stakeholder meeting. That would work very well. And it would be very fiscally responsible on your part as well.
Okay, so I will save my questions because I see a lot of hands have gone up. So that was just the idea to Mr. Sokolovic's point about that. I'll turn it over to Ms. Baptiste Perez.
Well, I had a comment as well to Mr. Sokolovic, is that we can run a hybrid model. So you already addressed that, so that's fine. The original question before we went a little bit tangent with like how the hybrid model would work, it was we're naming specific stakeholders right now to invite.
No, I think you're just naming groups.
So organizations.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few that pop up to my head that are.
Are you asking for that? Are you asking for that now, Ralph, Mr. Dr.
Yeah, I think because then I would prepare the conversation with the point of contact.
Okay.
We get that point of contact tomorrow.
Well, in general, each of our schools have PAC presidents, so I think getting in contact with the PAC presidents would be helpful, because those are actual parent stakeholders with children in our school districts.
Yes.
There are outside educational groups and more religious groups that when I boil it down to it's the family members. So there's a nonprofit called Faith Acts that is involved with educational advocacy in Bridgeport as well as other large cities. That are there's another organization called Make the Roads, CT. They're involved with educational advocacy and they've been involved and come to our meetings. There's Bridgeport Generation Now. They take a big role, especially with general issues throughout our cities and education. There are also groups, and I don't know all the groups, amongst different housing associations. So, for example, there's PT Partners, and that has a lot of family members and relatives of students that live in PT projects. Now, whether there's or housing association, whether there's other organizations similar like that spread throughout Bridgeport, I don't know all the names.
So if I can interject, normally what we do when you have that number of different groups is we have the point of contact reach out to all those groups, and the groups then basically choose a representative of two for each of the groups, and we have a meeting for what we call civic and advocacy groups. That would be one Zoom meeting we could work with. Then we would have a meeting with your PTA leadership and your parents. That's another meeting. We would have a meeting with your teacher leadership and teachers. We would have a meeting with your administrative leaders. Okay, then we would have a meeting with your support staff, right? And then we would have a meeting with students, and then we could have the open forum like we discussed in an auditorium where we consult with them. And then you, of course, it's important then to blast out to the entire school community, the entire city of Bridgeport, that the online survey is available when it's open, when it closes, so that everyone can have the opportunity to participate. And then I'll be straight up front with you. Sometimes you will get feedback from someone through the process or a group through the process that is perhaps upset or offended that they weren't involved. And not to worry about that, because I have conducted Zoom meetings at another time with them to make sure that they felt included. We don't want anyone to feel like they're not included in your process. That's important.
I have a point of clarification just with the process with the various forums or stakeholders. Why is it board members aren't advised to attend? Is it just like
because in our experience, when if board members are there, people are not open and honest about what their concerns are and what they want to share. Okay, it's courageous upon you. It's courageous for you as board members to open up the dialogue to stakeholders to share their concerns. And if you were there, if board members do attend, what happens is people sometimes are concerned and they don't share what's really on their mind.
That actually makes sense, especially with certain stakeholder groups, how they may not feel fully vocal if a member is there.
Right. And let me also say that when we do the report and we turn it back to you and we emphasize with the stakeholders, we do not attribute anything to any comments to particular individuals. The comments are lumped according to group. Like we'll say in the report, the parents told us, the students told us, the teachers told us, the administrators told us, not a particular individual. Community groups, community advocate groups, and they told us. City officials told us. So people are much more open and honest with what their feelings are. And it will help you when just two things. It helps you when you're interviewing. It helps us when we're vetting candidates, and it helps prospective candidates after they read the stakeholder report to say, oh, is this a fit for me? because we really want to make sure that they, as you had mentioned, as one of you had mentioned, you want somebody who wants to be in Bridgeport, who's dedicated to your city and your school system.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Baptiste Perez. I wasn't sure if you were finished.
No, I'm done for now. I had another question, but I forgot to write it down. So if I have another one, I'll just raise my hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lombard?
Yes, thank you. My main thing was what Ms. Baptiste Perez just asked about the reasoning behind board members not being present for these different forums. So with that, and these would be done, those would be done virtually. The hybrid one was the community one separate, but would those be done in a platform where it was not recorded or transcribed? So we would not have access to it in any way. The confidentiality would maintain. Is that done through your? Okay, that's done through your platform. Okay,
Correct.
so that's done through us. And then as far as the example we were talking about with the community forum, in addition to the parent one or the whatever, but where everyone could come together, where it was a hybrid, would that be something more comfortable where board members could be there? You know, I would.
So what we normally suggest in that situation, and this is how it's been done in other communities I've worked with, is a board member or several board members attend that meeting in the beginning, introduce the firm, and introduce the purpose of the meeting, and then they excuse themselves.
Wow. Well, okay.
It's just powerful in terms of telling your community you care, you want to hear about what they have to say, and you want them to be open and honest with the consultants.
And then you did mention teacher interest as far as all the unions in general that are involved.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a common.
Yes. What we normally do is we ask the union leadership your point of contact would ask the union leadership to identify who they want to be invited to the stakeholder meetings. So it's not doing the inviting, it's the leadership that does it.
Right. You also mentioned, I thought was interesting, city leadership.
I've seen that to be important. You know your city better than we do, and you would know if that's important.
Right.
I've always believed as a superintendent, and I believe, Robert, you would agree with me that as a superintendent, you better have a good relationship with the city leadership.
I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least extending the opportunity to be a stakeholder voice, that makes sense. So I thought that
makes a lot of sense. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, we actually kind of highly recommend it in certain states, like in Virginia, the city and the county, they're the ones that fund the district. So they better have a good relationship with the city.
Mr. Benahan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just listening my colleagues, I agree with all of you guys, and especially what Ms. Baptiste say about the PAC and PTSO we have in each school. Each school here around with 37, in each school we have a president, vice president, secretary, and 5 member large. So it was good to have whoever's here and she be the superintendent of school have a very good communication with our parents, because I always say this: without parents, we don't have no students, no education, no school, nothing at all. And I know so far, be 20 to almost 20 years in the district, I know how far, how many superintendents we have. And one of the priorities, if you don't have communication with the parents, you cannot go forward. And it's very important. One of the best thing I'm part of this committee is special needs. We got a lot of parents. They got a special needs children's. That's very, very important for me. It's one of the high priority, because I know some parents, they don't know the policy, the rules, the rights and everything. So that's one of the part. I'm in love with that part. I don't have a special need kids, but all the Bridgeport students, and we have a special need field, they are my kids, because I care about them and I care about everyone. But whoever's being here and she, they have a very good communication. Also, they have to understand, whoever's going to be superintendent of school, they all will have 9 board members that will support her or she They have to understand we're gonna support, defend 100%, and be sure. Yes, they have communication with the city, but before any situation happen with the city, I hope she or he understand. Come for the board members so we can know what's going on any process. We don't want to have the make mistake we having before. It was a cow, and we want the best because remember, when they say something wrong with the superintendent of school, that's me, the board member. Board member something's wrong, the superintendent of school. So we need to have a good communication, because it's the best for the children, parents and staff, and everybody's watching. I just want to put that for the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Ms. Kashmir, I know your hand wasn't up, but I did want to make sure everyone had an opportunity to speak. So if you want to share your thoughts on this, on stakeholders.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, but I agree with what everybody else said, and I have nothing more to add. Thank you.
No problem. All right. And I agree. I think I said my 2 cents in the very beginning. I do think the stakeholders in the different community groups that you mentioned are very important to add to this conversation. And I look forward to seeing something like this happen within the district, because I do think as we, they're the ones that are sending their students to the district and to the school. So this is like a very important thing. I see Mr. Sokolovic hand is up again. So Mr. Sokolovic.
Again. Of course, again.
Oh, now Albert's is up. So I'll get you next, Albert.
So Albert's up again too. Anyway, as far as the community forums, okay, couple of things. We're of a district that there's a very bad reputation about our city, doing things behind closed doors and hiding stuff. People tend to come out to events and things and start recording the meetings in public spaces. How are we to prevent that? That's my first question, and then I got another question after that.
Well, that's a great question, but I don't know. Even when we do Zoom meetings, and completely with a small group, somebody can be there with their phone and record it. So there's nothing that we're going to be totally transparent here. So there's nothing that anybody's going to tell us, and nothing that we're going to say to them that we're concerned about being public. So
right. Yes, because with things that happen in our district and in the past, I could almost guarantee you'll have at least one camera up in these meetings.
Right.
We could ask them, but I just don't want to, because none of the board members will be maybe introduced and walking out or whatever have you, and then there'll be staff and security left to address any concerns, and I just don't want to have somebody who goes against what we want for that community forum to be secret and have some issue pop up.
Appreciate.
We've had it pop up in our own meetings.
Appreciate that. I've done big community forums, for instance, in Roanoke, Virginia, that were televised. So.
Right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's one thing, and the second thing is, as far as running them, it's gonna have to be somebody from district staff, and
it's just somebody there that's got to introduce us and set it up. We'll run it.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, as far as IT could with the cameras and all that.
Right.
Correct.
I guess we could do that through the point person and.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Perry and Mr. Robert, question. When you say, can you clarify with me when you say stakeholders, they don't like, let's say, or intimate because a board member show up or be in the meeting. But my question or my concern is, if you don't have nothing to hide, you don't need nothing to be scared. If you don't have nothing wrong to say, or you're professional, you know exactly what you're going to say, you'll be okay. Because how are we going to communicate? How are we going to find out? How are we going to help each other if we don't work together as a team? Why it had to be like a separate, like, oh, be careful of board members here, or be careful what you say. So I always say, if you don't have nothing to hide, you don't need nothing to be scared. So can you clarify that little part for me, please?
Well, I don't disagree with you, but human nature is that people sometimes are reluctant to share honestly and be forthright with what their concerns are. If there's someone in the room that they think, I'll use the word, has influence over them or can, and it's not fair, but it's just human nature. It is what it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to jump in. I agree with that. I agree 100% about the board not being there. I understand everybody's side of it and everybody, take on it, but I think these guys are right. I think in order to get the raw, qualitative data, for lack of a better term, I just feel like that's the way to go. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry, for your comment.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Before we move on, just want to make sure we've captured everyone who wanted to share their thoughts on this particular part of the agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll go forward and get those set up. I'm going to put up the, you have the timeline that we put forward. Yeah, the timeline. Tentative calendar timeline. So let me just get out of this. Tentative calendar. It is aggressive. It is aggressive because when we're starting, just so you know. Today we're doing what we're doing, getting everything ready. The sooner you turned around the information that Mr. Copeland's putting together, better. Robert, you want to go through this timeline?
Yeah, I mean, after that, we're shooting for the 27th and 28th to have all the advisory group meetings completed, and then at March 27th, we're looking to have the application process open from March 27th through April 27th. As those applications come in, consultants will be reviewing those applications. And by the way, consultants, and I've already talked to some people about Bridgeport. I'm sure Dr. Ferry has also. And so that's an ongoing process. After the closing date of the applications, April 27th, we'll begin to go through the number. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks to go through all of the applications, and eventually we will present to you all of our recommendations and all of the candidates, not just our recommendations, but all of the people who submitted an application, the second week of May, and the board will interviews conducting semifinalists in May and the finalists, and hopefully by early June, be able to name a board superintendent. That's a lot going on in the spring.
And we put those dates May, early June, because that's going to be dependent upon your availability. Obviously, we mentioned the stakeholder input that we've already discussed. The start date obviously will be determined in terms of when you appoint the candidate and if there's contractual issues that the candidate has in terms of getting out of a contract if they're a sitting superintendent in another district. So a little bit of clarification. I know that Mr. Copeland shared this with you, but we will present formally the 4 or 5 applicants that we feel meet the requirements. Each one of those applicants will have a background check done by us prior to presenting to you. They'll have to prepare that 9-minute video that I discussed during the proposal process. And we will do our reference vetting, and you'll get information regarding that. And then you'll determine who you want to interview out of the group that we share with you. And then very often the boards will ask us, well, can we see everyone who applied? And certainly you can, but in that situation, we provide a read-only a link to the applicants for everyone who applied for the district. So, but you're putting your faith in us that we're going to identify the 4 or 5 best, absolute best candidates that meet the criteria that you shared with us this evening and that meet the criteria that we hear from your stakeholders. It's very important. It's multi-layered, and again, it's aggressive, but I know it's sometimes challenging to get everyone together to do these interviews and all that, but we'll work with you in terms of identifying the dates, the locations, going forward there. And then it also depends on the interview process that you want to implement. Do you want it to be a completely confidential interview process, or do you want it to be a process where you involve members of your stakeholder groups? And we'll have conversations about that as well.
All right, I'll open up the floor for comments or concerns about the timeline. So I'll start with Mr. Sokolovic, since I see your hand up first.
Yes, just a timeline. Not the timeline of itself. I like the aggressive timeline. We could get this done in a quick period of time. We've got to get the superintendent, whoever that superintendent may be, in place for the start of the new school year. One of my concerns as far as the background check, which we discussed a little bit in kind of went over. As part of the background check, I would like to know, I don't know if this is something that needs to be said, but from past experience, it does need to be said. I would like to know if anybody has like any resignations or adverse news articles.
That's a great question. Let me comment on that. The background check we do at the home office is financial, educational credentials, criminal. And that would be done on all the candidates we present to you prior to presenting to you, which is important. But then we will do a deep dive into social media, references, and if there is anything, and we always ask this question of candidates and of references, is there anything in your background that would either embarrass the Board of Education in Bridgeport or McPherson and Jacobson, the firm? We need to know now. And look, sometimes superintendents have some things that pop up in their past, but we will let you know exactly what those issues were. Some boards choose to work through them, and some boards say, no, this is not a candidate that we want to move forward.
Right, and it doesn't necessarily mean if there is something in there that we cannot look at it and move forward, but what cannot be accepted is to have it buried like 10 deep inside of a letter of recommendation and then say they told us. I mean, it needs to be front and center if something like that does come up.
And it can't come up later afterwards. It's got to be on the front end.
Right, thank you.
Mr. Benahan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question and a comment, but if you cannot answer me, I understand the privacy. Well, first of all, I would like to have the interview with us, the board member. I like to be transparency. I don't like to hide nothing because I know whoever's going to be the superintendent had to deal with parents, and I like to know because nothing to hide when we interview them. Second is, it was possible when the interview or searching the superintendent or interview, the presidents of the unions be involved?
It depends upon, normally under those circumstances, what happens is not the semifinal interviews, but perhaps the 2 finalists. They come in, and then there's representatives from each of the stakeholder groups that have the opportunity to meet the candidates, ask them questions, but they have to also understand that they are advisory. They are not the hiring panel. You, as the Board of Education, hires your next superintendent.
Yeah, no, we of course, you're absolutely correct, sir. But I just want to be sure because I know the whoever's going to be superintendent have to deal with the president of the union, process and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I want to be, transparent. They can have a good communication or some questions, not to be hard. Of course, I understand that part.
I'm sure we've both been through those processes. Robert, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies from district to district. If you're I think what Dr. Ferry was asking though was, do you want to have an open search or a closed search? An open search meaning that the last 2 or 3 candidates come before the community and are basically now everybody from their communities knows that they're a candidate for Bridgeport. That's one way of doing it, and you've probably seen that happen. There are other districts where it's a closed search, and the board decides who their candidate is going to be and then says, here's our choice for a candidate. You want to decide early on which one of those searches you want to engage, because the candidates will ask the consultants that. Is that where you're going with that, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. And normally the way to do that is you have your semifinal interviews, right? And then you involve your stakeholders with the finalists. And what we tell the finalists are, look, that's the way it's going to happen. So you better let the folks know in your current district that you're a strong candidate for the Bridgeport superintendency. We're doing some searches in Florida now, and Florida is totally different. Anybody who applies for the job, their name gets published in a newspaper. So you don't even know if you're even close to being a finalist. And that's a challenge for us to identify candidates who are successful in their districts, who they just don't want to put themselves out there when they have that kind of situation. But it is totally appropriate to do what Mr. Copeland shared with you in terms of finalists.
Thank you much. Thank you so much for your clarification. Thank you.
Mr. Lombard, then Ms. Kashmir.
Yes, thank you. So I'm just talking about the same topic. I think because the way you described it was that the open or closed isn't necessarily communicated to the candidates until they become a finalist, and then they're told, okay, if you want to be considered now, it's going to be open? Or is it from the get-go, everyone's aware that if they become a finalist, it's going to be open? How would that be handled?
We like to share that on the front end, in my view. We like to tell, look, the semifinal interviews, it'll be confidential up until then, but if you're a finalist, all bets are off.
Right. So I bring that up because I think we're all saying the same thing. That needs to be decided soon. Which way we're going to go, and because if we're going to start the process from the very get-go, people need to know the way it's going to be. And I don't know when we'll have that discussion, but I think we have discussed it a little bit. And the example that you gave is kind of what we talked about, having it be confidential until the finalists, and then those finalists would be public. So in any case, I wanted to bring that up because it seems like that's got to be decided pretty soon.
Yeah, I will say the firm's position on this, our firm's position on this, is we like to have the process being transparent with the finalists having the ability to have conversations with the stakeholders.
Right. So the stakeholder groups and forums that we mentioned are prior to that point. They're to gather what it is they're looking for.
Correct.
But then at the end, when there's time for the 2 or 3, whatever we as a board decide is the number we would do public, the 2 or 3 that's public, would that be all over again with these stakeholder groups?
No. What normally is each stakeholder group chooses a representative. So you might have a group of 15, like one parent representative, one administrator, one central office, one civics group, one student. Okay. And they then give the feedback to you as a board. They fill out a feedback form. We put it sealed in a confidential envelope and give it to you to look at prior to you doing your final interview.
Would that be an interview of sorts?
It's more of a meet and greet and a Q&A.
And is that something that the board members would be on with them, or would they be also separate?
They won't.
Is that something that would be public, or would that also be confidential?
That's normally just those stakeholders and the candidate.
Just them. So would there be, for example, we talked about one of the forums being a large group, the hybrid one, would there be something like that for just the general public as well with these finalists, or is that something that wouldn't be part of it? From what you've done, we could do what we want, of course, but see, so.
I've participated in those as a candidate, I'll tell you that much, where I met in front of 300 community members.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was looking for a superintendency, but I was in a small superintendency looking for a larger superintendency, right?
Mhm.
And I was very transparent with my current board and told them this is what was happening because I knew all confidentiality was off the table then.
Yeah.
And from my perspective as a candidate, I found that to be useful because I understood what I was getting myself into and what people were concerned about. But that's totally up to you. And I
Yeah.
will tell you that in that situation, some of the other candidates pulled out. They didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, because that would be something that would be public. And
Right.
I know we did do that. I know, for example, the League of Women Voters held one where the finalists were available to answer questions, and they would read a question, and each finalist would answer the same question. So that's an option as well. So that one wouldn't be confidential with just the 15 members we were, for example, that you talked about. That would be
Right.
just public, you know.
And that's probably just as often done. And most of these are done in larger urban districts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So just trying to see what those options are. But I think well, I know my sentiment is what was explained, having it be confidential until the finalists, and then having that be public. But that's just where I stand on it. So, but okay. Well, thank you.
Ms. Cashmere?
Thank you. Two super quick questions. The background checks is like the Child Protective Services background check also done within that?
Yeah, that's part of the criminal background check. Yes.
It is part of it. Okay. And my other question is, are you, Dr. Ralph and Mr. Robert, are the two of you, do you guys have eyes on everybody's application packet, or do you just like pay people to look at it?
Oh, no. It'll be two of us and Dr. Shelley Holt. She'll be with us as well. We
Okay.
review every packet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was a good idea, though.
I think maybe we could find somebody to do it for us, but that's not what we do. When we come and present the candidates to you, believe me.
I feel like there's no stupid questions, right? Those stupid questions.
When we present the candidates to you, we know them.
But before I go back to Mr. Sokolovic and any other board member, I just want to see if Ms. Baptiste Perez has any comments to this timeline.
No.
She's no? Was that a no? Okay. Mr. Sokolovic and then Mr. Lombard.
Yes, we've actually discussed the open versus closed, and we as a board voted we've got what's known as a executive search committee, which is not subject to the Freedom of Information Act. And the reason we formed that is so we can, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we formed that so we can interview all the candidates behind closed doors up until the final 3 candidates, which can take place in public. So we've already really voted on that and come to that conclusion. So I think we can include it as is in the search proposal. And
okay,
as far as the last 3, I think we would do probably the same way we did the last superintendent search in front of the public, ask our interview questions, do our score sheets, and then go into executive session to discuss or whatever have you to pick the finalists.
Okay.
Am I remembering that properly, everybody?
That's right, Joe. That's right. I don't know that we decided whether it'd be 2 or 3, but we definitely did decide we would do it that way.
Right. You may be right. There wasn't a discussion about 2 or 3, but does everybody think 3 is a good number?
I would suggest. I would suggest 3 being the most, but you may find through the interview process that there's really 2 that stand out. So it's it's up to you as a board.
So can we just put the final 2 or 3?
Sure. Yeah, I think you want to see where you are before you come to finality on that. See who the candidates are. what your feeling is.
Yeah, but we do want them to know that only as many as the top 3 is subject to exposure, so they can protect themselves in their district.
Okay. Good point.
All right. Mr. Lombard, I saw your hand up. I didn't know if that was your question, but go right ahead.
No, I forgot to take it down. That's it.
Okay. All right. So it seems like everyone's in agreement with the timeline. I did receive just a question and from a parent, so I will leave that up for you guys to answer. A parent asked, is this a normal timeline for a process like this? Is it too fast, or is this normally how it's done?
Right now, it's right in line with how we're conducting our searches now. But if we are running into an issue with applications, if we're not seeing the kind of submission of applications, this timeline is always subject to revision. So we will revisit this with you, but we've already started getting the word out in terms of your that we're doing the search. So I think we just need to monitor it and keep in touch with you and adjust as necessary.
Okay. That was the only question I had.
It's a great question from the parent. Yes, thank you for that question. So let's go on to number 6. Just the advertising venues, just to make you aware, these were all included in the proposal. We're going to advertise 30 days on American Association of School Administrators. We're going to advertise 30 days on Ed Week Online, which is Top Schools Jobs. The online version of Ed Week is what gets the most views and action. We do not advise a hard copy in the Ed Week publication. First of all, it's very, very expensive, and there's always a time lag in getting it in the production of that document. 30 days with the National Alliance of Black School Educators, and 6 weeks with the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. The reason why there's a difference, 30 days and 6 weeks, is because that is their timeline for when we submit an ad, how long they will run it. So it has nothing to do with us, but for instance, the Association of Latin Administrators and Superintendents, they run their advertising for 6 weeks. The National Alliance of Black School Educators runs their advertisement for 30 days. So we don't choose the length of those. We will also put all this information up on our website. Once the position description is approved by you, it'll go on your website. We will send out emails to approximately 1,200 individuals who are in our database at McPherson Jacobson. We'll send out information to 130 consultants across the country to include the position description. We're going to be working with your point of contact on developing the brochure for the position, and Connecticut School Boards Association, our folks in the home office will reach out to those organizations that are specific to Connecticut. As long as right now, these are included in your fees. If there are any other vocations that may require additional costs, we will not advertise in those organizations without your approval. But we will reach out to Connecticut Association for School Administrators, Connecticut School Boards Association, to really blanket, particularly Connecticut, but all these other areas as well. So that's where we're at with the advertisement. Does anybody have any questions on that? It was all in the proposal, and it's done very thoroughly.
I see one, Mr. Sokolovic, and I'll go around and see if anyone else does. Go ahead, Mr. Sokolovic.
Yeah, I got a suggestion for an addition. I know maybe an additional cost, but the Council of Great City Schools is they got a very strong minority recruitment effort, and I see they advertise on their website. I don't know if there's fees involved or not. Have you ever worked with them and advertised with them?
We'll definitely check it out. Council of Great City Schools.
Correct.
Okay.
And I don't know if anybody would if there's an expenditure, if everybody wants to go for it. I don't want to slow down the process, anybody having to come back to us or whatever.
I also am, I belong to the association, the Association for Urban Superintendents. We'll get the word out through them. And again, our consultants are well connected throughout the country, so.
Right, yeah, so if there's any additional courts, I think maybe just skip it and we just stick with what we got, but if it's
Okay.
could be
Thank you.
cheap or free, we just move forward and so it's not
I
to
have
complicate the timeline.
Thank you.
I just have a question before I go back around. Do you track data? Is data going to be provided to the board to see how some of these advertisements did? That may not affect our talent pool or not, but I'm into marketing, so I'm always interested to see how that would affect. Maybe it's relevant, maybe it's not, but I just thought I asked.
Basically, I don't recall getting data on. We know how many hits our website get,
Okay.
but we don't know how many people, particularly go to each one of these advertisements. But we'll have a pretty good understanding. And let me also mention this. We've learned not to panic early on when we start advertising,
Okay.
because most of the applications come in the last couple days, three days before, 2 days before, because that's just the nature of how superintendents apply for positions. They kind of, particularly those who are in current positions, they kind of say, let me just wait till the last minute to get this in because, everybody's concerned about confidentiality.
Oh, that answers my question. That's why I asked to see how that would affect anything. But okay, thank you. I'll go around. Mr. Benahan, do you have any questions concerning this?
No, not this moment. Thank you.
Mr. Lombard, any questions concerning this?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what is the brochure? What is it? Is it a physical thing or is it?
Yes, it's physical, but we send it out electronically.
Okay.
Physically electronic. It really becomes electronic.
Okay.
Okay. So it'll really showcase the district. We'll ask for some photos from the district, statistics about the district, highlighting all the programs in the district, and you'll get to see it before it's final approval. And we send it out electronically to all the applicants as well as the position description.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We have a new logo. You can put that on there.
Yeah,
we do, and it's beautiful.
Put the, it's how we recruit. It's all positive, great stuff about Bridgeport schools.
Put it smack dab on the front. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Ms. Cashmere.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Ms. Baptiste Perez.
No questions or comments.
Okay, I believe that was all board members. Feel free to continue.
So we're open for any other questions that you have. Otherwise, we've accomplished a great deal of work this night. And we're ready. Off we go. Once you approve that program description, position description.
I see Mr. Sokolovic. You're muted, sir.
Should have the hang of this by now. Yeah, how soon will you get back to us with the proposals, or are we? I mean, what do you need to hit the ground running? I mean, do you have to come back to us to get us to approve the proposal as you written it, or can we approve?
Yeah. Robert, you want to talk
I'm
about?
going to, as soon as I get the notes from Dr. Ferry, I'll start working on that. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm on a flight back. I'm in North Carolina right now. I'm going to be on a flight back to New Jersey, and I'll work on it. And I should have a draft ready for my fellow consultants probably by tomorrow night or early Saturday. And if they approve it, then I'll send it off to the board.
Right. And what's the first day in the calendar? I don't recall as far as action items on the timeline.
First thing is we're be in touch with your point of contact. We need board chairwoman to send us the point of contact in the district, and we'll start setting up those stakeholder meetings.
Right. Yeah, I was talking about this like the stakeholder timeline. So I mean, something that's going to take a significant amount of planning and to put together.
Yeah, we got to get that going Monday at the latest. We have to have that, because the one thing we don't want we don't want you to be criticized for not having enough advance notice.
Right. So if we're going to approve this as a full board, I suggest maybe we got to have a special meeting as
I-
soon as possible to approve this whole thing, the whole timeline, or
No, I think it's,
No,
Oh,
thought it's
it's done.
included. Like,
It's all
Yeah,
part of it.
but here's what I've done, what we've done is Mr. Copeland will send you what we believe to be the final position description. And then you could all take a look at it. And then you can, if you have any minor tweaks, there's not going to be any major tweaks, believe me, because we'll capture everything you said. You can send those minor tweaks to Ms. Brown, and she can send it to Mr. Copeland, and we'll get it resolved, and then off we go.
okay, so we don't need. So I guess we could.
You don't need to take a vote on it.
Okay, so
No.
we could basically have these discussion as executive search committee and.
correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're
Yeah.
not held up by having a meeting to have.
Yeah,
a vote.
no, because if we have to have special meetings to do all that, so we're going to really slow the process down.
Gotcha.
Good point.
Mr. Lombard, I see you.
Yeah, but actually, it is a good point. If I was understanding that timeline, were these stakeholder meetings supposed to happen by March 27th? Is that right?
We were saying the week of March 27th.
The week of March 27th. So in 12 days. So like, okay,
Yeah.
so 2 weeks. So that's quick. That's quick.
Yeah, it is. It's a quick
So
turn.
that's why you're saying Monday, get it out.
When is your spring break? Is it later? Is it around Passover, Easter?
Yes, it starts April the 7th.
Okay, so we could actually do if we had to, push some of the stakeholder virtual meetings to like April 3rd, 4th, and 5th too.
That may work better anyway.
Give people a little more time.
The
Yeah.
5th is Passover, just the first
All right,
night.
so it would have to be that we could do them the 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, so, did I? Trying to remember if I had anything else. There was something I wanted. I got Passover, but pass over me for now. Speaking of
Okay. Mr. Benahan, any other questions?
No more questions, no more comment. Everything was very clear, and then soon we can have this done. That's all.
Okay, I see you, Mr. Lombard.
I remember. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. How confident I feel after tonight's meeting that we made the right choice again 4 years later.
Yeah, I was disappointed 4 years ago, but that's okay. We're back.
And you know, you really have. I feel like we're being held in your hands, and we're able to really cooperate together for our objectives. So I wanted to share with you how I feel personally. Feel very good about this, and I agree with the parents' comment and question about the timeline, because it is very aggressive. But you even said it could be revisited as needed. So
Absolutely.
So I just want to share that. So thank you.
You certainly don't want to settle based upon the timeline. You want to make sure the best possible candidate for the position.
Got it. Ms. Baptiste Perez, just want to make any final comments? I don't see her unmuting, so I'll come back. Miss Cashmere, any final comments for the firm?
No final comments. I think these guys know what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank
Okay. And then back to Mr. Benahan again. Any final comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to go pick up back what Mr. Lombard said, and I agree. I know we going correct the way it's supposed to be. We follow the rules, the protocol, the policy, and I know we will find the best superintendent school. I know it's not going to be perfect because nobody's perfect, only God, but I know it's the best for our children, in the future for everyone. So I really appreciate that and your time, your valuable time to be here with us. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I guess I have a comment as well. Since the beginning of this process, even with the search committee, it has really come together. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Ferry for being patient, but also to being as clear as possible in the very, very beginning stages of us trying to get this all together. And also contacting and keeping me in the loop so I can keep the board in the loop. I think that was very well outlined so that we can, get to this very point. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Appreciate it.
Yep, Mr. Sokolovic, and then I have one more thing before we go, so I just want to make sure we get to everyone. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo everybody else's sentiments. This is great. This is perfect. We had a little bumpy road getting to this point in the process. We have many detractors that said we cannot do this. We could not come to do this with an outside search firm. It would take too long. Let's just use X, Y, Z and just take a shortcut through the process. It's exhilarating to be going through the process for the first time in my 3 superintendents to have a proper search conducted without big controversy. And I, like Mr. Lombard, definitely feel comfortable in your hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So right before we go, I fell to in the beginning the contract. So we would have to go back to discussion and possible action on entering into a contract with McPherson and Jacobson according to parameters discussed in the search committee. Legal has to see the contract just to view it to make sure we're all in good standing. So it would have to be amended. Just with the basis of legal viewing it. So I just want to make sure we properly did that. So everyone, everything was clear with legal as well. So would someone like to do that?
You're saying amend that legal contingent upon legal approving?
Yes, that will be it.
So I move that we enter into contract with McPherson and Jacobson pending legal approval. Is that all right? Or am I amending the original?
Yes, I believe you would have to amend the original.
Oh, so I make an amendment that the contract is reviewed by legal and approved.
Hold on, pause.
Right.
We have to vote to amend.
No, I think technically we need to make a motion to reconsider the previous motion. I think that's probably the better way.
Oh, open it back up again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We can't amend it because it's already settled. So I'll make a motion to reconsider the vote on entering into the contract with McPherson and what's the last name? The McPherson Jacobson Group. You got a second?
Second.
Any questions?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now I would like to make a motion to enter in a contract with, somebody say the name for me, please. I'm sorry. McPherson
and
Jacobson, pending approval of our attorneys.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll make sure that legal reviews it. And if there are any questions or concerns, we will reach out. Without further ado, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, everyone have a good night. We'll be in touch with
Good night.
everyone.
Great job, everybody.
Good night.
Take
Great
care.
job.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. God bless you all.